For introduction, welcome to this amazing festival, and thank you for organizing committee to inviting me for this remarkable city and country. So I'm Sedat Gundogdu, as introduced by previous speaker. So I want to talk about a bit myself. Here you can see two cats. I'm a cat person, so we are writing articles, books, and all things together with those two cats. Microplastic. The name of the white one is Micro, the other one is Venus. So they are sharing huge part of my life. So I want to show this to handsome guy to you. So I'm a marine biologist, mostly working on plastic pollution over 8 years in all around the world, not only limited in Turkey. So I'm a member of Scientists Coalition, which is working for effective plastic treaty, currently negotiating by United Nations, and an environmental barrier. So you can see that there is a huge giant animal in the slide. So every year a couple of them stranding because of the effect of plastic pollution. So the last one was in the Mediterranean Sea. It was like a couple of tons, and there was hundreds of kilograms of plastic was inside this giant animal. So that's why they are stranding so frequently last couple of years. So why plastic is problem? So first we should define this, and then we can talk about the real solution. Was the extent of current proposed solution. So plastic is kind of chemical cocktails, like 16,000 different chemicals, which most of them are carcinogenic and endocrine disruptor inside plastics. When you touch plastics, it means you are touching chemicals. So all of those chemicals has some specific purpose, like some of them necessary for the starting reaction to produce plastics, some of them giving some properties to plastic to produce consumer goods, like the bottle that you have to add some chemicals to have those bottles, because as a raw material, plastic polymer useless. You cannot use as a material, so you have to add some chemicals. The number of those chemicals is 16,000. Is completely toxic cocktail. So there, the group inside the plastics, there are many different classification. So, but the largest part is colorants. That's why all the plastics are so shiny and colorful. And consumer attraction on the products. Some of them are fillers, processing aids, lubricants, biocides, protectors, and many other things that give plastics. Because if you want to produce plastics durable over time, you have to put more chemicals. If you want to have hard plastic, you have to put some other chemicals. If you want transparent plastics, you have to add some other chemicals. All these chemicals has some health effect on not only on human, also in the environment. Some of them non-intentionally added chemicals. We call it like the monomers and some polymer parts, polymer substance. They are coming from the petroleum. So it's this original chemicals already inside the polymer. But some of them intentionally added. So the producer, I mean the industry, adding those intentionally added chemicals to give some specific properties. So this makes entire life cycle of plastics a source of pollution, from extraction to waste management practices, because all this stage generates pollution. Like during the extraction, it generates, it's 99% of plastics are made of fossil fuel. So when you extract fossil fuel from the ground, so you are starting to generate pollution. And then when you produce, when you're cracking the fossil fuel to produce some plastic monomers, it also generates pollution. When you produce plastic itself from monomers, you generate pollution until when you see these plastics inside the Ganges River. So this is the end of the life, because plastics is designed to be waste, not designed to be reused or recycled. So we are still using these plastics designed at the beginning of this century. There is no change. The only change, the number of added chemicals, because we discovered more and novel chemicals to have more and new type and kind of plastic. So how much plastic that we produced until now? It's like more than 10 billion tons. We produce plastics, and like 40% of them still in use, like we are using in the construction, in the automotive industry, in some the computer electronic industry, but the remaining part either burned, incinerated, or landfilled. So we only recycled like between 2 and 9% of total plastic that we generate. So recycling actually is nothing for plastic waste. The projected production volume of plastic will be like 1.2 billion tons per year in next 30 years. So it means we will have more plastic, we will have more waste. Just imagine India produces 60 million tons of waste per year, and 15% of this 60 million tons are plastic waste. It means just in India, every year, people generates 10 million tons of plastic waste. And almost 1% or 2% of them are going to be recycled. The remaining part are landfilled or going to the environment. If you go to the seaside, you will see that most of them are stranded to the sea. This is same almost in all of countries. There is no exemption. For instance, European countries, which is more and most clean environment that they have, more sophisticated waste management system that they have, they are exporting half of the plastic waste they generate, exporting to Turkey, India, Philippines, and other Asian countries, and also Africa. So the remaining part, the 50% of the remaining part, they are burning, incinerating. Actually, they don't want to recycle, they don't want to reuse those plastics, because when you recycle plastic, when you reuse plastics, it means you are recycling chemicals and bringing all those different kind of chemicals as a cocktail in a new form of recycled material. Or when you reuse plastics, it means that you are, leaking this chemicals inside the food stuff that you use to put inside the plastic. So as a waste, there is a classification. The micro and nanoplastics, which is most concerning one. Nanoplastics is like plastic particles smaller than 1 micron. It's like 100 times smaller than a centimeter, a millimeter. You cannot see. It's not easy to detect. It's not easy to quantify. It's not easy to remove. When you contaminate it with nanoplastics, that's all. There is no way to get rid of this size of plastics. It's like a size of coronavirus. So microplastic is more visible one, until 5 millimeter, which you can see everywhere. Just look around yourself. We are just inside a plastic dome. We covered with plastic. All the carpets are plastics. But 15 years ago, all the carpets were made of wool or some other natural material. But now, all this material is made of plastic. So they are release micro and nanoplastics. When you breathe, so thanks to the hair inside our nose is just catching some of them. But some small size, we are breathing. That makes some problem in our lung, because our lung capacity is not capable to eliminate this nano and micro particles. So we are producing plastics. I mean, during this plastic production, we are generating pollution. But what we proposed as a solution, cleanup technologies. You see, there are many robocops. They have on artificial intelligence, has like solar panels, and they are communicating each other and collecting waste on the rivers and sea. But we are talking about million tons of plastic waste currently floating on the ocean. Those devices, which you have to invest millions of dollars, cannot even collect 10% of the total plastic waste currently floating on the environment. So cleanup technologies, cleanup initiatives, something, but for solution, it's nothing. So another effect is climate change effect. As I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, the plastic made of fossil fuel. So when you produce plastics, it means you are generating fossil emission, like carbon, CO2. And the total emission of this CO2 because of carbon, it's equal to between 8% to 15% of total carbon dioxide emission generated by fossil fuel production. So it's too much, because plastic is one of the largest non-fuel source of climate change. Of extreme weather event increased, and then this made flash floods every year, and then all those flash floods carried all this plastic waste from the street that we don't have enough and efficient waste management, and then carrying all this waste to the marine environment. So when plastic get in the marine environment, it broke the carbon cycle of the marine environment. So it's like a infinitive circle, so deadly circle. So the zooplankton, the second stage of the producer, zooplankton used to eliminate marine snow. We call it like a dead debris of the marine environment, like dead bodies, like organic material. When you replace with this organic material with plastic, and then the zooplankton will not be capable to eliminate this organic material, so they will eat plastic, and then they will lose their capacity to reduce the carbon dioxide inside the carbon sources inside the marine environment. So this is another way of breaking the change of carbon cycle. This is also additional effect on the climate change. So the solutions, there are a couple of proposed solutions. The first is incineration. I put to some colors to understand, to explain you which is false solution, which is downstream measures, and which are greenwashing. So the red one, false solution, incineration, recycling waste to fuel. Because incineration generates toxic emissions. So when you burn plastic, you generate toxic gases like a dioxin, furan, POPs, and PAH, and heavy metals, and other organic chemicals, and also dust. So ash, I mean. So those ash, when you filter the smoke that you generate during the burning of plastic, you have to transfer all those chemicals inside the ash. So ash become toxic ash. So there is no way to eliminate this ash. In some countries, putting those ash inside the ships and trying to send other countries as a fertilizer, as a raw material. So they are exporting their waste. This is externalization of the pollution. We call it waste colonialism. So incineration, burning of plastic waste is not a solution. So recycling. So we are recycling only 2%, I mean properly recycling 2% of total plastic. But the 9% just one-time recycling. Most of the PET bottle that you put inside the recycling bin, not turning into again PET bottle. It's turning into the carpet that they use in the covering the ground. When you make waste, this carpet, no one take this for recycling. You have to incinerate it. And during the recycling, mostly mechanical recycling, you are generating more and more toxic chemicals. And waste to fuel, this is very novel, proposed as novel technology, produce fuel from waste. But if you want to produce clear and fit with the emission, the regulation, you need super clean plastic waste, because all the plastic waste are contaminated, because we use with as a packaging, we use inside as food packaging, so all the food package are contaminated with food, so it's not really suitable for producing high quality fuel. So when you produced fuel from waste, is useless for proper usage. Plastic is fossil fuel. Fuel produced plastic waste also fossil fuel. It's not a circular, it's not a sustainable. So alternative materials, which is one of the fashion initiative proposed for the solution as a solution. Yeah, alternative materials, those biopolymers, plastic made of corn, plastic made from cellulose, or some bacteria producing plastics, some algae or fungi. There are many stories. Every day, my friends sending me news. New kind of organism discovered to produce new kind of plastics. The percentage is less than 0.1%. Like, is nothing, when we compare with the total production of the plastic, because this alternative materials is not behaving different than conventional plastics. This is one of the problem. When you put these plastics, the alternative plastics like bioplastics inside the water, it's behaving as normal plastic. There is no difference. If you want to produce as strong as conventional plastics from bioplastic, you have to add some chemicals, because all this feature, all this specialty of these plastics comes from chemicals, not from plastic itself. So if you want to produce similar special material, you have to use those chemicals. If you use those chemicals, what's the difference? So even when you put these alternative materials inside the recycling chain, you are breaking the system, because normal recycling or recovery system for normal conventional plastics does not work for this bioplastics or biopolymers. So alternative materials is something, but still premature, still very early stage, and the total amount is negligible. And the microbial decomposition. Maybe you heard that there are a couple of organisms decomposing plastic, like PTEA, like fungi, some bacteria. And in theory, like a science fiction, you are putting plastic bottle inside like a beach tank full of bacteria, and then those bacteria transforming those PET into new monomers. That's a theory. That's a fiction. In the industrial scale, doesn't work. In laboratory, you can do it. We are also doing. We have some petri dishes, some small glass jars. We have full of enzyme and the bacteria. We are putting some like 1 or 2 milligram plastic inside. It disappears, but just 1 or 2 milligram. We are producing 450 million tons per year. Is too much. Like, we need billion and trillion, maybe quadrillion amount of microorganisms to decompose all this plastic waste that we generate. And waste management. These two green are greenwashing. That's why I put it, because most of the companies proposing this solution as a miracle, as a solution for humanity. The blue one, this two, cleanup and waste management, is kind of downstream solution. I mean, trying to eliminate the results rather than to remove the source of the pollution. Maybe you heard that there is an ocean cleanup initiative. They are trying to clean oceans by big ships. They have big ships, 2 ships, and there is a net, and then just standing inside the middle of ocean, trying to collect the waste. And also there is some waste bin they are deploying inside the ports. It's like a vacuuming water and then filtering floating plastics. Those kind of system need to invest millions of dollars, but just one waste bin, which is $10,000, just one, can capture only half kilogram, like a 500 gram plastics per day. So do you have that amount of money to invest for just half of kilogram, $10,000? That's meaningless, because this kind of proposals, I mean the solutions, just for proposal for technology. So all this, during the whole event, or this festival, many speaker, explained about technologies, artificial intelligence as a, a very brilliant feature. But unfortunately for waste management, all this technological development is not really brilliant for humanity. So what's the solution? Actually, we have a chance now. Currently, there is a negotiation in UN level. All the countries, all the states and the countries has delegations currently negotiating plastic agreement. This agreement will include reduction in the production, because we have to reduce production of plastics. Otherwise, there is no solution. We have to reduce 40%, at least 40%. Why 40%? Because 40% of total produced plastics are single-use. The single-use plastic is one of the main problems. Single-use plastic is not a plastic, spoon or fork or plate. I'm talking about the packaging. So we have to think about packaging. We have to redesign packaging, because all those packages that you buy are single-use. So we have to think about that. Single-use culture is the main reason. So if you want to have solution, so we have to think about the single-use culture. So this agreement, treaty, currently under negotiation. The last meeting was in the Korea, and the next one will be, somewhere in Europe. I don't know. It's not decided yet. But there are 2 groups. One group is petrol states. They are producing petrol, and they don't want to make any agreement. But the other group, like more than a double or triple number, when we compare with the petrol states, they are defending for ambitious plastic treaty, reduction in production, and also they are trying to propose some list of chemicals, because we don't have only material problem, we also have chemical problem. So otherwise, all this waste management system, all these technologies, all these robocops that we are deploying in the environment to clean the environment, I mean, in excellent level. All this waste management, even all this waste management proposal will apply to eliminate this plastic pollution. We can only reduce 70% of the pollution, but in the very best scenario. But this is not possible. So the only solution is reduction in the production, because all the scenario pushing us to reduction. Otherwise, we cannot solve the problem. So now we have to declare a global emergency for this, because this is really more than what we thought about this issue. Because it's not about only pollution. It's also about the global population decline and the statistic in the human health issues that novel illness like Alzheimer, Parkinson, new kind of cancers, all this novel illness related with plastics and chemicals. Thanks for listening. If you have any question.
I want to ask that the nations which are supporting the treaty, which you mentioned, are they coming up with some alternatives to the plastic packaging or some new kind of solutions?
Thank you for this question. Yeah, there are a couple of alternatives solution proposal. It's a systemic change. It's not a replacing plastic with something else. It's about a systemic change. Regulation with some unnecessary plastics, like mostly single use. We have to start with those countries and those groups, initiatives, networks propose. We have to start with the most unnecessary part of the plastic, like single use mostly. I mean, rather than packaging. Packaging is second stage, and the redesign of the packaging and banning some group of chemicals and transparency, and also proposing alternatives like a deposit refund system, refilling system, reusable systems, this kind of upstream solutions. They are proposing this, of course, but there is no such miracle material to replace with plastics, unfortunately.
Hi. My question. Hello. Hi. Can you hear me? Hi. So really interesting presentation. I think it's really critical right now as well. And like you mentioned, there are many chemicals that have, even if one has been banned, there's a very similar one that's kind of just been substituted in. So transparency about those things, I think, is really critical. But so much of the world now hinges on the availability of single-use plastic, right? Whether it's convenience like a water bottle or any kind of packaging for food products, like the whole FMCG industry is kind of coming into question when you take away plastic. So how do you really see the future of that? Because regulation is one thing in terms of taking out kind of the littlest bit of what is easy to replace or what is easy to kind of get rid of. But how do you really see a sea change in the way that we consume that doesn't involve plastic?
Well, thanks for this question. We should think about the whole system, because why we invented plastic packaging. Because with plastic packaging we can transport a food item from point A to point B. The distance between these 2 points is too far, like hundreds and thousands of kilometers. So we should change the system, and we also, in parallel with this, replacing reusable system and refillable system, the local food system. So because that's why we need the plastics, because we have to transport. If we change the mindset, the necessity of the transport of food from point A to point B, then it will be easy to change the system. That's why we are not talking about replacing a material with something else. As you said, they are changing polypropylene with polyethylene. So both has limitation, advantage and disadvantage. So we should think about the whole entire food system, and in parallel the local food support system should be developed. It's a part of just transition, as we discussed in climate change adaptation.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I have a question about some products. They look like, let's say, paper, like a paper cup, and they contain plastic. So is there a method, a standard method accepted globally where there's a mark or something and which can also implement it here in India? Some method which is implemented already?
Well, actually, when you look at your history, you have your own solutions. Because those materials is quite novel. Like last 10 or 15 years that we see this kind of cup in our daily life. Before that, we had some nature-based solutions. Even we didn't have this kind of, cups. You know why we use these cups? Because of hygiene. But in reality, there is no single connection with plastic and hygiene, because plastic is not hygienic. So some countries, they banned this kind of things, but the ban itself only doesn't work because you have to propose some alternative system. Like there is some refillable water station here, and there is also some single-use plastic and paper cup just behind this bottles. So if you put this, you should remove this plastic cup, because these two together is like an oxymoron. You are eliminating plastic bottle, but offering another nightmare plastics, even worse than PET bottle. So we have our own solution. We have to look our traditional consumption culture. So when we becoming more modern society, so we are transforming into Homo plasticus. But when we look at our traditional way of living, it's a real Homo sapiens way of living, So we have to think about our traditional way of living. Then we will find our own solutions. We don't need the new proposals, new technologies.
Hello. Yeah. I wanted to know on a personal level, from your side, do you think this is something which could be reversed or at least be controlled? And also, do you, on a personal level, do you follow practices at home or your work where you try to control the minimization of such usage? Because I think it is finally coming down to how the society has to go back or what you do. So even if governments come up with frameworks and policies, I think it has been imbibed into everyone's usage so much. Now it has to come at a personal level. So that's the reason why I asked, what is your personal opinion on the future of this? And also, do you have any practices which you do on your own?
Yeah, I have my own practices. Most of my friends asking me, if you have such amount of information about the effect of plastic in our daily life, how do you survive? Because everywhere plastics. There are some unavoidable part of plastic, so I'm just ignoring that part. I'm trying to be in the safe side, like using non-plastic alternatives, like precautionary principle. When I see something inside the plastics, I'm thinking about what this plastic is made of. The second, is there any alternatives? So what happened if I didn't eat this? So this kind of question, if you ask yourself, you will easily find the alternative, because plastics makes you blind. When you see plastic, you ignore, automatically ignore all the alternatives. Even there are some alternatives around. Like, there are many plastic bottles around, but there is also some water filling stations. So if you have your own, cup or, like a mug, you can fill and drink. That will reduce your, PET bottle footprint. So if you carry with you, plastic bag, not plastic bag, alternative bag. I mean, many alternatives that you can find in the market. Even you can make of your old clothes, from your old clothes, like a bag. So this is also elimination of plastic bag in your life. And when you go to the market, just do not choose this popular fancy brands, because all these popular fancy brands are full of plastics. Just go to the local. Just try to stay at local level, because being local is being just. is like being healthy, being sustainable. So in many countries, consumer coming together and making like a cooperatives, consumption cooperatives to find better practices. Maybe you can also try this because your community is more suitable than any other part of the world because you are familiar with this kind of cooperative. Because we learned that Indian waste pickers, one of the more powerful group in the world, and made of women. I was surprised when I first heard that, because all the waste pickers in India, most of them are women, and they have very strong and big union. And why I'm talking about that? Because most of the countries, they even don't have any union on this. So that's why I told that you have background. I mean so you have, tradition to bring together, and also you have, your generates one of the less. You generates less waste in the world, like 100 grams to 600 grams per person, when we compare with the other part of the world. So you are still in the good part of the statistics, and also you have very good, traditions. Just try to stay in the tradition. Being modern is not something good.
Hey, I'm Kundan. Sorry, I was a little late, so missed some part of the presentation. But what my question is, we are thinking that we want to replace plastic with something else. So that solution also should be sustainable. For example, if we replace it with something else and that creates some other problem. So what do you think about that? Also, in this era of capitalism, the solution should be cheaper than plastic, or at least equal, or no one will adapt it, or people will be hesitant because we'll be paying some extra money, and not a lot of people are that much privileged to use that solution. So what are we already have done, or your thoughts about it?
You are talking about alternative materials, right?
Yeah, alternative, about like the alternative solution should not create some other problems. Also, that should be cheaper, or at least should be equal. Because
there is no cheaper material than plastics, but only when you pay. But in the total cost, the expensive one is plastic, because when you use plastics, when you dispose, the government has to deal with this disposal cost of this plastics. And when you put inside the waste bin, if there is no effective waste management, so it will leak into the environment, and the government will invest some cleaning technology, and then will invest for burning of this removed plastics, because when you collect plastics, you have to burn it. There is no other way, or landfill. So plastic is not cheap in total cost. Alternative materials, I think it will be repetition, because I told too much things about that alternative material. I'm sorry you were not here, I think. But still, we should think about eliminate plastics rather than finding another alternatives. The first thing, avoid, and the second thing, if necessary, then find an alternative.
Also, so follow-up question on that. Now again, if I look at my, as a person, I will look at my pocket, like I'm paying 5 rupees, 10 rupees, or like if I'm buying something, I'm paying 5 rupees. And if I add it with some other solution, it will be 6 rupees. So I will be looking at my pocket only, not government's. So do you think we should add that in our education also? Like government's money should be your money as well, and you should not only think about your money that you are paying, but also what government is paying. So it will be more like people will be more conscious about it while using it.
So you just think about more educated society in the world. Which part of the world more educated?
That is the main.
All
thing.
those countries sending their waste to those countries. So education is something, but it's not the solution of this problem. I'm not talking about the educating people, because people are not something to educate. I'm not in that supremacist level of thinking. I'm not talking about. I never mention in my any presentation to educate people, because people can, it's also another colonialist point of view to say educate uneducated people. Who is uneducated? The rest of the world think that the India is uneducated because the most of the polluted part of the world are Indian coast or Chinese coast. All those people are uneducated. That's true? No. So I'm not commenting on education.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the presentation. You talked about microplastics and nanoplastics and how zooplanktons are raising them. So basically, they are entering the food chain and getting bioaccumulated, and then there are physiological problems which are being caused. So, do you think microbial decomposition can be feasible in the field of medicals to eliminate or to at least decrease the
In body.
in
You mean
body
in body?
in body of an organism?
Well, yeah, in theory, yeah, that's right. We have to drink some, cure of like a microorganism, but we are digesting as well microorganisms. So we have to take some microorganism from our blood, intravenous microbial injection, maybe a solution. But all the microbes has some other effects. Just think about that. They have their own life. They don't designed to decompose plastics. It is like a side effect of their activities. So this is science fiction.
No, sir. I meant using the gene.
Yeah, genetically modified organism can be a solution, but 450 million tons per year. Can you imagine that amount of plastics? And there is not only one type of plastic. We have more than 100 different type of plastics, have different formulation. So all these microorganisms, has capacity to decompose some certain type of polymers. But we have 100 different type. So we need more and more diverse microorganisms. So in your one day, you are touching 10 different plastics. So you are receiving 10 different microplastics or nanoplastics inside your body. For instance, in here, the carpet are polyethylene terephthalate, and the clothes that use nylon, and the microphone that you touch is polyethylene or polypropylene, maybe PMMA, or also, this coverage are polypropylene. So all of them are generating micro and nanoplastics, and you are breathing or inhaling them. So what kind of microorganism will save you from those microplastics? So just think about that. Those are solution, but very small scale, like lab scale. Maybe in the near future, like in science fiction movie, some of the engineer from this community will generate a groundbreaking and miracle solution for decomposing all kind of plastics. If we see this kind of technology, yeah, of course, we can inject those microorganisms inside our body to eliminate micro and nanoplastics.
Thank you, sir.